I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Iran retaliates against U.S. military bases in Qatar Monday following U.S.'s attack on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. It's by-election day in 3 Alberta ridings. Current opposition leader Naheed Nenshi looks to take the seat left vacant after Rachel Notley stepped down as party leader. A long, secret network of tunnels 100 feet below the streets of London could be the city's next big tourist attraction. Thanks so much for joining us. Tensions continue to rise in the Middle East following Saturday's U.S. attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran says it retaliated by launching an attack on U.S. forces at the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. These are the satellite photos of the base from last week, and it shows many of the aircraft normally stationed there have now left. Qatar temporarily closed its airspace Monday evening amid the threats of Iranian retaliation after the weekend airstrikes. Qatar's foreign ministry earlier confirmed the airspace closure was done as a precaution and happened several hours after the U.S. and U.K. urged their citizens in the energy-rich nation to shelter in place without elaborating. According to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari of the Foreign Desk, Iran's retaliation was to be expected.
As expected, we were waiting for some sort of retaliation. The United States asked their personnel in the Middle East to be on alert, and in particular, Qatar, where is our most significant base with about 10,000 or more personnel. At that base, they were asked to evacuate hours ago, and right now we just got word that about 6 to 10 missiles were shot by the Islamic Republic in the direction of our U.S. base there in Qatar. So waiting to hear about the fallout, but we did see some preliminary unconfirmed videos about the sky space over Qatar. A lot of those missiles being intercepted, of course, and we'll see what this means. Obviously, this is that saving face from the Islamic Republic.
Catch my full interview with Lisa Daftari of the Foreign Desk coming up right after Business News. Since Saturday's bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities, U.S. President Donald Trump has raised the possibility of a change in leadership in Iran. On Sunday, Trump posted a question on social media asking, why wouldn't there be a regime change? White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt was asked about that today.
Caroline, when the president is floating the idea of regime change, how does he believe that should be accomplished? Through the Iranians, the Israelis, or the Americans?
The president's posture and our military posture has not changed. The president was just simply raising a question that I think many people around the world are asking. If the Iranian regime refuses to give up their nuclear program or engage in talks, we just took out their nuclear program on Saturday night, as you all know. But if they refuse to engage in diplomacy moving forward, why shouldn't the Iranian people rise up against this brutal terrorist regime?
If Iran shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, is there a plan by the U.S. to add oil to the global market? We saw the Biden administration do a strategic petroleum release. Is there a plan?
I can assure you the administration is actively and closely monitoring the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian regime would be foolish to make that decision. We'll see you all later, okay?
There are fears that Iran could block oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz, a major commercial trade passage that it partially controls. Meanwhile, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah, who was deposed in a 1979 revolution, has today offered himself up as interim leader to take over running the country. Reza Pahlavi is appealing to the international community to help Iranian people force out the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and his religious dictatorship.
This regime is defeated, teetering on the edge of collapse, and must not be allowed to continue. The time has come to end this ruin and begin a new era for Iran. This is a new dawn for Iran's lion and son. I am here today to submit myself to my compatriots, to lead them down this road of peace and democratic transition. I do not seek political power, but rather to help our great nation navigate through this critical hour towards stability, freedom, and justice.
And the rhetoric between nations is heating up as well. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin today in Moscow. Putin shared his thoughts on the U.S. attack.
Неспровоцированная абсолютно агрессия против Ирана не имеет под собой никаких оснований и никаких оправданий.
Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has suggested a number of countries were considering supplying Iran with nuclear warheads. In a response on social media, Trump said the U.S. bombing power displayed over the weekend could pale in comparison to the lethal force of U.S. nuclear submarines. And with all of this going on, there's also the NATO summit this week in the Netherlands. President Trump heads to this two-day gathering with many questions needing to be addressed, including the future of U.S. troops based in NATO countries.
First, it was Russia's invasion of Ukraine, then increased defense spending. But as Donald Trump heads to a NATO summit in Europe on Tuesday, the focus has swung to his decision to strike 3 nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran. The immediate consequences of the attacks shadowing the U.S. president's 2-day trip to The Hague in the Netherlands.
This summit is a really slimmed down summit to the ones that happened in the previous years. This summit is now focused on one thing, and that's appeasing Trump.
NATO countries have become accustomed to the unpredictable when it comes to Trump, who has made no secret of his disdain for the 32-member alliance. Most members are preparing to endorse the increased funding pledge of 5% of GDP, up from 2%, motivated not just by Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine to bolster their own defenses, but perhaps appease the United States and its tempestuous leader.
We've been supporting NATO so long, in many cases, I believe, paying almost 100% the cost.
The CSIS's Bergman believes that NATO members, by agreeing to defense funding increases, may be in fact hastening the removal of U.S. troops from Europe.
I think the big thing overshadowing this summit is that the Pentagon is looking at its force posture presence in Europe and around the world and is looking to make major cuts.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Belgium today for the EU-Canada summit. From Belgium, he'll then head to the Netherlands for the NATO summit. Canada's next national census is set for May of 2026. The federal cabinet has issued an order fixing the date for the census and the questions it will ask. The last census was held in 2021 and collected population data on age, gender, marital status, family structure, and types of dwellings. Statistics Canada says the results are used to plan government services involving employment, schools, public transportation, and hospital services. Albertans are casting ballots in 3 by-elections today. After advanced polling wrapped on Saturday, polls opened this morning in Edmonton-Ellerslie, Edmonton-Strathcona, and Olds Didsbury-Three Hills. The polls will remain open until 8 p.m. Advanced polling data shows about 10% of the 34,000 eligible voters in Edmonton-Ellerslie turned out to cast early votes, and about 10% of the 29,000 eligible voters in Edmonton-Strathcona did the same. And roughly 13% of eligible voters turned out to advance polls in Olds Didsbury-Three Hills. In Edmonton-Strathcona, NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is vying for the seat left vacant following the resignation of previous leader Rachel Notley. Official election results are expected to be announced on July the 3rd. With all the wet weather lately, last week, the city of Lethbridge has decided to lift the River Valley fire ban, effective immediately, but the city also says precautions should still be taken when having outdoor fires. Make sure to use clean, dry wood and also ensure your fire is completely extinguished before you leave. You're also reminded to be extra cautious when disposing of smoking materials. The County of Lethbridge has also lifted its fire ban. Fire permits can once again be applied for online. Recreational campfires, burning barrels, and incinerators are now allowed, but only untreated wood and yard waste like leaves, branches, and weeds can legally be burned. A long secret network of tunnels 100 feet below the streets of London could be the city's next big tourist attraction. Local authorities have approved plans to fill some World War II bomb shelters with a museum, an interactive World War II memorial, and one of the world's deepest underground bars.
These tunnels were built as a result of the London Blitz, which started in September 1940. The British government clearly needed to build some deep-level shelters to protect people. And so between 1940 and 1942, the British government built these tunnels and some others in London to protect people. Does London need something new? I think every city always needs something new. And if people are visiting London, they definitely visit in its association with the royal family, Buckingham Palace, the wonderful museums.
The Medicine Hat Health Foundation announced a tremendous contribution towards the Medicine Hat Regional Hospital on Monday. The Ural Family Foundation, headed by Bill and Elizabeth Ural, has donated $5 million in a move to enhance cardiac care services in southeastern Alberta. As part of the Bringing Hearts Home campaign, the funds will go towards new equipment, renovations, and increased space in order to improve urgent and preventative care in the city.
Heart disease is for sure one of the leading causes of death in Canada. It's the #2 reason for death in Alberta, but very unfortunately in southern Alberta, it's the #1 killer. Our mortality rate in southern Alberta is 26.6% higher than the rest of the province. We are desperately in need of more equipment, more services, and more cardiologists to provide the care to try to prevent the excess death and bend that curve on mortality and save lives. I'm so incredibly grateful that the Ural Foundation and the Ural family would believe in the vision. They have been such a pillar of the community for decades. They have been so incredibly generous. They have invested in the community, whether it's in education and it's in health.
You know, we look for things to try to make the community a little better, maybe provide things they didn't have or different ways of doing things. And of course, healthcare is getting to be a big deal. The population is getting a little older. But other than that, it was just provide a service for people in Medicine Hat and area. When they get on later in life, they have some healthcare issues. And so now when you're dealing with the cardiac side, there's a lot more service in Medicine Hat now than there used to be.
The Health Foundation has a campaign goal of $30 million over the next 2 years, some aid coming from the provincial budget to enhance ICU capacity in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge to the tune of $5 million. The City of Lethbridge is offering a new toolkit aimed at keeping children and families safer in an increasingly digital world. An updated online safety toolkit is now available through the Lethbridge Police Service website. The toolkit offers practical guidance on high-risk behaviors and covers topics including violence, cybersecurity, gang recruitment, and fraud. Chris Andrade, Justice Program Officer with LPS, explains why this tool is so important.
Certainly, over the last few years, we've always seen a really heavy presence of online activity that youth are in and getting in trouble in. We've seen this has come into play with cyberbullying, sextortions, all kinds of different areas. And as a police service, we're always responding to those and then giving parents some information after the fact when something has happened. With a resource like this, we're hoping that parents and youth in the community can access these resources proactively and maybe try and avoid having further victimization or issues online. As soon as we have a youth that's accessing a cell phone, a tablet, or the internet, we should have parents that are aware of the dangers that are online. Unfortunately, even when it comes to kids being involved in online games, we have people that will use and exploit all of these sites to try and groom kids, and we just need to make parents and youth aware of those dangers when they're using those systems.
Whether you're a parent, an educator, or a youth, it's a resource that you're able to go to that has relatable and practical resources for online safety. It goes from anywhere from parental controls to what risks are happening currently in the landscape of the digital world with youth and how to help take a preventative approach in educating children, but also as educating yourself as adults and supporting youth.
The The original toolkit was launched in October of 2020 as part of the Building Safer Communities initiative. Summer was welcomed with heavy rains. The storm that hit this past weekend left everything from downed trees to flooding in its wake. However, the city of Lethbridge deployed its crews who worked hard during and after the rains to keep the community safe. Leanne Lamerston, Water and Wastewater Operations Manager for the city of Lethbridge, says the city began preparing for the rain last Tuesday, recognizing that the storm was coming.
Sunday afternoon, when the winds picked up, that's when we saw lots of downed trees after 2 days of rain. That was probably our biggest challenge. The wastewater treatment plant saw significantly increased flows. They called in extra people to make sure that everything was working properly, and they did a really good job of treating all the extra flow that was coming to the plant. What we will do in the next week or so is review our response, take a look at what we did really well, where we could improve for next time. Right now, the system's back to normal. The ponds in neighborhoods are back down to normal levels, and that's how the system is designed to work.